Hi guys, finally here, hope you're well. Welcome to my Valtan Gate 2 guide. I've covered a few basics regarding Legion Raid in my Gate 1 video, so I'll keep the intro brief as there's a lot to cover for Gate 2. The consumables you'll need for this fight are, for DPS, Time Stop, Destruction Grenade, and either Flame Grenade or Dark Grenade for the last slot. Supports will want to bring Time Stop, Corrosive Grenade or Destruction Grenade, and either Flame Grenade or Dark Grenade for the last slot. There are many key mechanics that occur during the fight. When you're learning, it's best to have a cheat sheet of sorts that you can refer back to on a second monitor or maybe through post-it notes. I'll cover the key mechanics in order of their occurrence, followed by the key basic attacks that you should memorize to increase your chance of survival until the last phase. I can't stress enough how much easier this fight becomes once you fully understand the basic attacks. I'll also add that taking a counter skill is almost mandatory while you're progressing on this fight. Let's begin. When engaging Valtan, he starts with 2 stacks of armor that will last the entire duration of the fight if it is not removed by the first key mechanic at 130 lines. The only way to shred this armor is to use destruction grenades and weak point attacks while Valtan is staggered. Valtan only becomes staggered when he charges into a destructible pillar in the arena. There are also 4 circles on your minimap that correspond to an energy that makes the player immune to Valtan's white mechanic at 130 lines, as well as filling up the sidereal gauge. So the raid will want to knock down as many pillars as possible, either by luring Valtan to charge or by baiting him to use an ability towards a section of the wall. In doing so, your raid will have an easier time dodging the green AoE puddles every time Valtan transitions during this phase. The white mechanic happens at 130 lines. Valtan raises his axe and becomes immune to damage. He slams the arena firstly with a dodgeable AoE, and then slams a second time with an unavoidable AoE. Having the buff from absorbing the blue orb will immune one of these attacks, meaning if you're hit by the first slam, you will lose the immunity buff. Because of the relative difficulty in coordinating everyone to have absorbed 1 blue orb, you will most likely want to summon Sidereal Balthor at 130 lines. By gaining Balthor's buff, you will be immune to the white mechanic and be immune to stagger and have high damage mitigation for the duration of the buff. Bear in mind, this buff has a deceptively small radius, so make sure you're in a good position to receive the buff. At 120 lines, Valtan shatters the inner layer of the arena. At 110 lines, Valtan will teleport back into the center and slam the arena with a dodgeable AoE, before a cutscene transition where he flies up into the sky. 4 pillars are created in the arena, while a player in the raid becomes the target of a pizza slice AoE. They need to either dodge at the last minute into the safety behind one of the 4 pillars, or dodge and use Time Stop. It's important to know that Time Stop will not work while the player is inside the pizza slice, and the pizza slice will also destroy any of the pillars that are within its AoE radius. Everyone else in the raid must be behind a pillar to not take damage from the yellow AoE covering the arena. Valtan will land back into the middle of the arena while using the pizza slice AoE on a player for the second time. Because there is no arena-wide AoE that follows, the way to easily dodge this pizza slice is to be close to Valtan rather than being far away. At 88 lines, Valtan will fly up, then come back down to destroy a large part of either the left or the right side of the arena. It's important to move ahead of this mechanic, especially if your raid is fighting Valtan up against the wall. Once landed, Valtan will spin his way back into the middle of the arena and summon 4 pillars while shortly covering the arena with the yellow AoE from before. After the yellow AoE, a player once again becomes a target of a pizza slice AoE. That breaks the pillars that's within the AoE radius, shortly followed by the remaining pillars detonating as well. At 60 lines, Valtan jumps back into the middle of the arena and summons a green AoE puddle under each player. This is followed by a transition cutscene and arguably the most dangerous mechanic of the encounter, the 3-breath hidden grab mechanic. If Valtan is not countered, he will charge while grabbing all players in his path and repeating the process 2 more times, with the last knocking all the grabbed players off of the arena. This ability does not have a counter indicator, and the timing window for the counters is extremely strict. The best way to approach this mechanic is to have everyone countering after counting to 3, or by listening to Valtan's breathing and using their counter after hearing the second breath. At 32 lines, Valtan flies up to come down and destroy the remaining section of the arena before summoning 4 pillars and yellow AoE, followed again by the pizza slice AoE on a player before destroying the 4 pillars. This time, the room for dodging the pillar AoE is much smaller. At 17 lines, Valtan goes through a portal to reappear in the middle and begins to slam the quadrants of the arena. This is followed by punching the ground and creating green AoE that staggers and knocks players when it explodes. His final slam creates an inner AoE followed by an outer AoE. Valtan creates 3 pillars on the arena while channeling the yellow AoE. Because of the multiple lethal attacks during this phase, almost all groups will use Sidereal Balthor here for the stagger and damage immunity. You'll want to summon Sidereal Balthor at the position of the first slam. Now at the final phase, we fight Ghost Valtan. Valtan will be stationary in the middle of the arena in this phase and swivel around as he does his basic attacks. Valtan starts with 6 stacks of damage reduction that can only be removed by performing a successful counter on the images that try to knock you off of the arena. Each counter grants the player with necrotic energy, and if they move near Valtan, they will purify one of the stacks of damage reduction. Each successful counter will also fill about 1/10 of the sidereal gauge. Ghost Valtan will come with a separate enraged timer that starts at 3 minutes, and the fight starts off with 40 lines. At lines 40, 27, and 13, Ghost Valtan will perform an undodgeable grab. This grab cannot be time stopped or spacebar and ultimate immune if you're caught inside the red semicircle indicator. He will follow the grab animation by creating a yellow semicircle AoE on the opposite side of the grab, which can be time stopped but not if you're already grabbed. We'll be using Sidereal Thyrane when our gauge becomes full. Because Thyrane deals about 170 million damage, about 9 bars in hard mode, there are often times where this pushes Ghost Valtan well below one of the thresholds of the grab mechanic. This does not mean that the grab mechanic is unaccounted for and will happen in the next 1 to 2 basic attacks. While enraged, Ghost Valtan will do significantly more damage, around 5 times the normal amount. His attack patterns will be twice the speed and he will slowly regenerate HP. It is possible to fight Ghost Valtan inside Enrage for Sidereal Gauge for anywhere between 1 to 3 minutes for classes that run double counter or high swiftness. Because Valtan uses the same basic attacks during Ghost Phase with minor modifications, I'll cover Ghost Phase basic attacks first before moving on to key basic attacks. Valtan will perform a quick swipe in front of him, followed by raising a glowing axe. Shortly afterwards, he slams the axe on the ground in front of him. This creates a fissure-like cross pattern that originates from the area where he slammed. Being caught by this attack will knock the player up. You want to be standing either to the left or right side behind Valtan when he performs this attack. Using one hand, Valtan slams the axe in front in a pizza slice followed by a slam behind. He then gathers energy to slam in front of him. This slam has a wider AoE to the sides of Valtan, so make sure to adjust a little ways backwards, otherwise there's a good chance you'll take the hit from this last attack. Valtan slams the ground twice in a pizza slice using both hands. The second slam will always follow in a clockwise direction. Valtan gathers energy with both hands, swinging left and right before bringing down his axe in front of him. This attack will create a safe spot towards his front while forming an outer AoE explosion. After the explosion, Valtan swings his axe 360 degrees and creates a final outer explosion. You'll want to begin by being positioned behind Valtan for the first 2 swings and then move inside the safe spot while avoiding the frontal attack. Valtan creates a red AoE indicator in his melee range and then proceeds to spin for about 3 seconds. This attack does not have a knockdown, so it's possible to chain multiple super armor abilities to eat the duration of this attack if you're caught inside. Valtan slams 3 times at a fixed location. Each slam becomes slightly larger than the previous one. Just like the last slam of the front-back-front attack, give this attack enough respect or you'll find yourself randomly falling off of the arena. Using both hands, Valtan will draw his axe to his left or right side. This is a stagger-based counterattack, meaning if a certain amount of stagger damage is applied, Valtan will trigger the attack. It's vital that everyone stops attacking during this attack. If triggered, Valtan will do high to lethal damage and push everyone back in his melee range. When his counterpose is not triggered, Valtan will swing his axe once, pushing players back. To avoid this, players will want to be stacked underneath the safe spot, which is under or by the hilt of the axe. Valtan leaps towards the target and creates a cross pattern fissure between 150 to 130 lines. This attack will always be followed up with a spin that chases a player. Between 120 to 17, there's a high chance that Valtan follows up this attack with a spin attack. Valtan flies up into the air and multiple green puddles will follow each player in the raid. Between 150 to 130, Valtan will land into the arena, leaving a safe spot towards the outer ring. From 130 down to 32, Valtan will land back into the arena indicated by a red AoE circle, followed up by creating a second AoE outside this AoE circle. To avoid the AoE between lines 130 to 32, you want to try and make it to the safe spot. You can look at the mini-map which will show you where Valtan will land prior to the AoE going off. Valtan will assume a charge pose and grab at the ground 3 times before charging the player with aggro. Between 150 to 130 lines, this attack is not counterable and you'll be using this attack to lure Valtan into the walls of the arena. The support with Corrosive Grenade will want to use their grenade during this 3 grab animation. From 130 to 17 lines, this attack will have a brief window to counter after the 3rd grab motion. Same ability as the triple slam during the ghost phase, but the quad slam tracks the player it is targeting, meaning that if you run in a circle around Valtan, this attack will knock up everyone around him. Once you recognize who is the target of the attack, that player will want to move away from Valtan so as to avoid severely damaging the raid. Valtan will go through a portal, shortly followed by creating multiple portals in the arena and charges through them. You want to use the remaining walls to prevent being unfortunately knocked off of the arena, as this attack can easily catch you by surprise. Valtan will imprison 2 to 3 players in the raid, indicated by a purple bar created under each player. If it is not broken out in time, each imprison will detonate for a large amount of damage. Use multi-hit skills and flame grenades to break out your friends. Valtan will lay down his axe and slam the ground in front of him. The axe will also create a puddle underneath each player before creating an outer ring AoE. Unlike the normal in and out, Valtan uses his axe to slam the ground. There are 2 variations of this attack. If Valtan's axe is not glowing, then the area in front of him will be a safe spot. If the axe is glowing, the attack behaves like the in and out attack. Regardless of which variation, Valtan will create green puddles under each player. Valtan will summon a giant green globe and a stagger check will begin. Being inside any of the green AoE will nullify your stagger damage, so make sure you're in a safe spot and spam all your stagger skills from there. If there are not enough players to pass this impairment check, be ready to time stop to avoid the lethal damage that follows. Valtan will raise both hands towards the player with aggro before charging them, grabbing anyone in his path. After the charge, he will face the other way and proceed to try and knock the grabbed players off of the arena with the yellow AoE. As soon as you see him strike this pose, you'll want to avoid the incoming charge, as this attack is almost guaranteed to be lethal. Valtan will create 4 green orbs at 4 sections of the arena while going into a charge mechanic until all orbs are absorbed or a counter is successful. The orbs, if left unabsorbed, will detonate for high damage and give players an increased damage taken debuff. Valtan will lean back with his axe before slamming the ground. Just before the slam, there will be a window to counter Valtan. The player who successfully counters Valtan will have a debuff around them that silences other players they come into contact with. Valtan will do this attack 3 times regardless of a successful counter. The first 2 counters will deal high damage if not countered. The 3rd and final counter will do lethal damage to the raid and cannot be time stopped. On hard mode, failing any of the first 2 counters will add the 4 orb mechanic into the arena. This will usually result in a raid wipe, so have a counter rotation planned for this occasion. Valtan will do a jumping pizza slice attack. Valtan will do this attack 2 more times if no one is hit by the attack. The 3rd jump will be far away from the raid and be followed up with a red AoE. That's it for Gate 2 Valtan. I apologize for the length of the video. I decided to cover all the attacks. Hopefully it helps clear any confusion you might have about the fight. I hope all of you are enjoying your Legion Raid experience. Have fun, be kind to one another, and I'll see you in the next one.